Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to follow up on something that came up earlier. It's interesting. The Nellie Bly tuition program, certainly with my financial background, I know there's concerns, and we're having spirited discussions about the funding of it. That's one issue. But I think there's a second issue conceptually that I struggle with, and coming from an area where Thaddeus Stevens is in my district now, they're expanding, you have Hack in my district, of other schools. What I'm wondering is why would the students that attend those schools, and let's face it, Penn State has branches throughout the state, Pitt, Temple, why can't the kids that are going to those schools also be part of this program? Why would they be shut out from receiving monies in this program?
So it's a great question. And as we've been engaging, and specifically this year around the Nellie Bly Scholarship, there's a real workforce rationale behind it. And now I'll kind of start at the higher level and then work my way down, if you don't mind, Representative. First, one of the things that we've realized through the department as we've been doing our workforce readiness work is that we know that, as I've shared a few times, 2025, that 60%, number of individuals that need an industry cert 2-year degree or 4-year degree. And we're well below that number, both in terms of the percentages of high school graduates that are going on and attaining those degrees. Second, in the number of high school graduates, our percentages are increasing, but the numbers decreasing. And then we know that there's a real shifting population and demographic here, here in Pennsylvania, and that needs to really forces us to be a little more aggressive in that in the degree attainment area. So, as we were strategizing and working with the governor and the governor's team on this, PASHE was identified for a number of reasons. One, it's the state system of higher ed, so it's the state system schools. Geographically, their schools represent a larger geographic map. So one institution represents almost every county in the Commonwealth. So it's geographically diverse. It holds socioeconomic diversity and diversity as a whole, and it's one of it's the cheapest higher ed option in terms of 4-year option in the Commonwealth. So $7,000 for tuition. So by investing in Nellie Bly and looking at that 6-year program, it will provide us students who qualify practically free college tuition for that cohort of students, and that's what we were focused on.
I still think when you look at Penn State, and I don't want to, I'm looking at Thaddeus Stevens and everybody but community college, but Penn State has probably even as large a footprint, if not more, than the PASHE system, let alone throw in Pitt's branch campuses, and you have Temple and Philly. I'm just saying, because what else to me is problematic, and I guess I understand why, but I don't understand. My understanding is that non-Pennsylvania residents are going to be eligible for this. I mean, I'd like to help. I mean, my commitment is to help our own Pennsylvania kids, young people, to do this. I mean, what's the thought process by allowing out-of-staters this ability to go to get this scholarship, and then they only can go to a PASHE school?
Mm-hmm. The position to align the PASHE is because it's $7,000 a year as opposed to a more costly 4-year option, and moving towards out-of-state students or out-of-state graduates. In order to qualify for the Nellie Bly Scholarship, you have to stay in Pennsylvania for 6 years after graduation. If you leave before those 6 years, you have to reimburse the state for the amount of funding that you used proportionally during that time. So what the governor, identified and I support, that in addition to a higher educational opportunity, this is also a higher ed opportunity, this is also a workforce opportunity. So we know that keeping individuals in state for 6 years after graduation will reinforce our pool and also keep folks here in the Commonwealth.
I appreciate you clarifying that. I wasn't sure that it was 6 years. I thought it was only the amount of years that people that they receive those grants. I thought it was a proportionate amount.
We're both correct in that. So it's the amount of years individuals receive the grant up to 6 years.
What other criteria would, for instance, an out-of-state student, how do you prioritize who's going to get these grants if in this setup?
You would have to qualify based on the federal standards in terms of federal student aid. So one, it would be a need-based. So, some of us call last dollar, others need-based. So it would kick in after you receive your federal aid and other financial aid.
I'm just going to say, I think the funding of it is a spirited discussion. I think there's going to be spirited discussion on this part of it too. Just my thoughts, but I appreciate the answers. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.